Hello and welcome to the Switch4Good podcast. I'm Alexandra Paul and I'm here with my co-host Dotsie Vausch.
Hello there, everybody out there. So I gotta start, if it's okay, with the shameless plug. And it really wasn't Alexandra's and my idea, but our amazing syndicators, the fabulous people over at Podcast Domination, Louis and Vanessa. If anybody's looking for a podcast syndicator, they are incredible. We heard about them from my friend Nimai Delgado, who has the Generation V podcast, and they are amazing. They said, Dotsie, you guys really need to read some of the reviews that you've gotten on iTunes so people can just have a little bit more of a flavor and have other people's opinions added in. So we're going to read a few of them so you guys can hear what, if you're new, like if this is the first time you're listening, I know Alexandra's shaking her head. It feels...
I'm a little embarrassed, but you can see how great we are. And here we go.
So, well, they say some things about the guests. So I tried to pick ones that were not just saying how great you and I are, but how great the guests are. So, I think hopefully it'll be a little bit helpful for, like I said, the people that are tuning in that are new. So one of the reviews that I loved said, I really enjoyed this podcast and hearing Adam Sudd's story and journey about recapturing his life. It's quite remarkable. This is a great listen for anyone that is struggling with their health and their diet.
So true. That was such a great interview.
Adam's amazing.
I was very inspired myself. Here's somebody who said, I learned a lot of useful new info here that I'd never come across before. Makes me rethink the place of milk and cheese in my diet. Thank you. Wow. That is the reason that we started. I know that's the reason you started your foundation, Switch4Good.
Yep.
The foundation. Yep. And it's one of the reasons that we started this podcast. So yay.
So that's a good one to hear. So this next one says, if Tim Ferriss did a podcast solely about food, this would be it. Hosts Paul and Bausch want you to improve your life, interviewing guests who offer insightful science-based facts on the foods that will do just that and those that won't. Since Paul and Bausch are both vegan, it would be easy to dismiss them as just a couple of evangelicals pushing their animal rights-based values. Instead, though, it says the two shows I've listened to offer practical facts from two doctors who are interested in the health of their patients and come from that perspective. I've learned more from these two podcasts than years of digging around on my own for a healthful diet. Plus, both Paul and Bausch forgo the mindless chat and really let their guests talk. It says, you won't regret it if you listen to it. Yay.
Yay. That was nice. Tim Ferriss, Tim Ferriss's podcast go for like 2 hours or 3 hours. We were never going to do that. I just do not.
Alexandra won't let us. She just said we just can't.
That was one of the things we decided early on, right? Our podcasts are about 45 minutes. Okay, here's one that says, thank you, Switch4Good, for sharing the truth about dairy to everyone everywhere. I lived 30 years of my life believing milk gave me strong bones and whey protein is optimal for building muscle mass, when that could not be farther from the truth. I can't wait to continue listening to this podcast every week. Yay! That's right. He must have listened to several bodybuilders that we've had on and that we're going to continue to have on to keep pushing that.
Get that myth out the door. Dump it. Well,
right,
okay,
so
we're done.
We're
done. We're very excited because I'm super stoked on our guests we're having today. So, Alexandra, our guest today is the perfect example, in my opinion, of an everyday person doing extraordinary things. Most of you have probably maybe never heard of him, but you might have by the time he accomplishes this goal he set for himself. Robbie Balenger is about to pull a modern-day Forrest Gump. That is, he is planning to run across America. He's going to be using the run as a platform to create conversations about better food choices and show that he will not only survive, but thrive on a strictly vegan diet as he traverses the country from Los Angeles to New York City. Starting on March 15th in Huntington Beach at about 7 a.m., Robbie has given himself 75 days to make it to New York. For those of you who cannot do quick math like I can't, that's about 40 miles each day. Yowza. And I was so floored when I heard about Robbie's story and about this challenge that he's doing. I just knew we had to have him on the podcast immediately. So welcome, Robbie.
Hi there. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. So how are you feeling? Because we're really just about a few weeks out when this is going to air. Yeah. Okay. So, oh my gosh. How are you resting? Because I've been talking to Robbie about proper rest on the phone. Yeah. How are you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. I have been definitely pulling back my weekly mileage and really just trying to rest up, repair everything and get ready for this run. I still am taking on a couple runs. I just finished up on Sunday. I ran the Austin Marathon, and I'll have one more 50-mile race before leaving and then hit the road. But getting very excited, getting all of the logistics in line, and setting my sights on New York City.
Well, I'm excited to dive into what you think this is going to be like. But I'd love to go back just a bit into your background, because you actually really haven't been running all that long. It's not like you started this when you were, 6 or 10, or you've really only been running about 6 years, and you ran your first half marathon just about 2 months after you really started running, just a couple months, right? And after you laced up your first running shoes. And so what was the impetus? What was the inspiration for you to start running?
So I grew up, team sports, athletics through high school. Then, went off to college, gained a lot of weight, thought it was all just that freshman 15, drinking a lot of beer. And then, I saw at the time it had just came out, Super Size Me, and it was just this revelation to me, just this understanding that, wow, some foods are really bad for me. And that seems so simple, but at the time it was a big deal to me. Post that, I spent my 20s in the restaurant industry and was gradually understanding food more and more. And along the way, kind of lost sight of how much moving my body really impacted my overall well-being, and kind of fell into that lifestyle of work hard, party hard, and especially being in the food and wine industry, that was really easy. About 6.5 years ago, I had the privilege of helping to open a really beautiful little Neapolitan pizzeria in Austin, Texas. And right about the time we opened, I realized that I was taking over operations for it, and it was wildly successful. And I quickly understood that I needed to find a way to stay accountable to myself and for that of the rest of the staff. I had recently started dating a girl who's still with my partner, Shelly, and she was a runner, and she invited me out on a 2.5-mile run. And I was a little reluctant, but I did it, and we made it from our house to a local juice shop. And that was as far as I would go. I was like, okay, it's time to get a cab home. Like 2.5 miles is all I can do.
It would have been me too.
So from there, it was, it just quickly, I realized the benefits of being able to move my body, again, how it made me accountable to myself, and also just cleared my head and dealt with the daily stressors in a much healthier way than spending the night at the bar after getting off work. From there, it was quickly a half marathon. The following year, I ran the Philadelphia Marathon, being my first one. And it was, at the time, the hardest thing I'd ever done. But with that came such a massive reward. I mean, just being able to reflect on myself and just be like, wow, I did that. And that just has stuck with me. And so from there, it just progressed onward. I did a 50-miler about a year later. And all the while, managing to run this pizzeria and using it for stress relief. So that was kind of how it all got started.
And you talk about how in college you weren't eating very well. When you were running this restaurant, you were wine and things like that. Were you plant-based then, or what was the origin of your plant-based eating?
Yeah, so no, I think for me, again, it was like a 15-year gradual thing that started with this catalyst of understanding that some foods were bad and some were good. And from there, I think as I moved my way through the restaurant industry, the food I was consuming did get cleaner, but I hadn't made this aha moment yet. Over the years, when eating at home, I was eating strictly vegetarian, but out and about, it just was what it was. I consumed whatever was in front of me. And then upon leaving the restaurants, and also about a year and a half ago, actually, when I left the restaurant, and as I ramped up my mileage and running and started to become more serious about it, I noticed with the more I left out animal products in general, my recovery time just decreased. I mean, I was just able to run a 20-mile run, jump up the next morning, and could contemplate doing that again. So my transition to plant-based, it was initially very much about the performance, and just understanding that it was by far the most optimal diet for me to be at my best during my runs. So that was where it all started. It was quickly compounded by understanding the environmental impacts. That was kind of what came second for me. And coming out of this restaurant industry, I was really searching for what my next career would be. And I kept looking towards something that I could do that would have a positive impact, and especially on kind of the, environmental crisis that we find ourselves in. And I was looking towards solar or, something like that, and realized that it was just like I was going to have to reinvent myself. And at the same time, my running was becoming so center of my life that it was kind of an epiphany all of a sudden. It was like, for me as an individual, the best thing I can do to help the environment is to take on this plant-based diet. And if I want to make an impact on a larger scale, combining my love for food and newfound love for plant-based food and this passion of running seemed like where I would find the most value for myself and be able to, again, have the biggest impact. So that was kind of how it all started. And then it was funny. It was like, I think for many people, it's not an overnight decision. It was something I knew was coming. I was like, I'm going towards plant-based. There were some places where I still wasn't completely like making a vow of this. And as soon as I did make that vow, and I started to just, eliminate all animal products, it quickly clicked with me the ethical reasons for why that was important. And for me personally, it's been very interesting how my reasons for this have kind of switched. Whereas initially, again, it went performance, and then environmental and ethical last. And now what I know is going to why I will continue this for the rest of my life is without a doubt the ethical implications. I could never see making a choice for myself that I don't have to, that would negatively impact another being. So yeah, now it's like first and foremost for me is the ethical standpoint, and then the environmental, and now performance kind of being last. Maybe some of that's because the performance just is how it is for me now. But yeah, that's kind of how it's all come together.
So from my vantage point, there's people that run, and there's people that run marathons, and there's people that run 50 miles. And then there's people that decide they're going to run 2,500 miles.
And they're very few and far between those.
Yeah. Oh, it's actually going to be 32 because you're taking the southern route and it just and then going up through Pennsylvania to New York City, so it's a bit longer.
Yeah.
So
it can vary, but I really wanted to make sure like there was no doubt I ran across the country. From Los Angeles to New York, that does it.
Okay, so that's peeling back the layers. You actually added, I think you added miles, because isn't it 2,650 or something straight across the U.S.?
Yes.
Okay, so you're a little bit crazier than I thought 2 seconds
added
ago.
miles to his run across the country. Exactly. That's not long enough.
So that's got to come from some deep, either really light or really dark place inside. What you gotta dig and tell us about. I want to hear about the moment that you said, this is what I'm going to do, and this is why, and this is why it matters, and this is why it's going to matter to other people.
I think for me, I think that there's so much you see around you in the world, that there's so many people that deal with immense amounts of pain and suffering. And I think a lot of those things could be overcomeable. I think in the case of my goals, it's through food. There's just so many people that suffer from depression or health problems, obesity, and there's a lot of pain and suffering in that. And that to me is a lot to take on. And to me, it sucks because a lot of times I don't think they understand why. And I think that in doing what I'm doing, just trying to be a catalyst for change for others, I can alleviate that pain for others. So like putting myself in this situation and putting myself through a pretty strenuous and what will be a sometimes painful endeavor. I don't know. I invite it because it's something that I have control over and I'm bringing to the table for myself. And I feel like that pain and that those hardships of what I'm going to go through are what will make this all worth it in the end. And it's a personal challenge too. It's a level of it is the adventure. I mean, that's kind of the selfish side of it. This is something that I'll have really good stories for the grandkids one day,
So it's a personal challenge for yourself. But also you talked about the other people's pain. How can you alleviate other people's pain by running across the country? What's your plan on how to help people change? It sounds like it's about maybe changing their diet, and that can help alleviate depression and a lot of sadness in them and maybe their self-image.
Yeah, totally. I think by being an example, right? Like when I decided to go plant-based and had friends and family around me who, didn't prescribe to that, their first thing was like, oh, but you can't do that and also run like you run. And it was like, I just want to be one more example. We have so many great examples of athletes that are able to take on this plant-based diet. And not only is it like that they can maintain their performance, but it actually gets better. So like providing that example being one of the main reasons for doing it, and something as monumental as running across the country, I mean, there's no denying it. If I can show along the way what I'm consuming, how we're preparing my food, well, I hope I never have to hear that excuse again of, well, I need meat or dairy because it's good for me and it's for a performance reason, and that's just such a fallacy. It's just
You'll certainly be slaying that myth for sure, and also the one about traveling. It's too hard to do when I travel.
Oh, yeah. So actually, something very interesting and that I'm using as a source of inspiration through this is my crew chief, Jackie. It's my partner Shelly's sister. Her and her husband Jamie, they just completed the Appalachian Trail on a plant-based diet about 3 months ago. Mm-hmm. So they even took it a step further, and I feel so privileged and honored to have her knowledge going into this. But they carried all their food in a backpack and managed to cross the country going south and north to south on their back. So me having an RV or a camper pulled by a van with a kitchen in it, it's almost
You're
even
cheating.
a step easier than they did. So that one, it's too hard to travel and be plant-based. I mean, I have a couple of doors we can knock on about that.
So what's the nutrition plan?
Yes,
when are you eating? Yeah. How much are you eating? What is it?
What are you eating?
Right.
Yeah.
Is it mostly carbohydrate based, I would imagine? And you have the percentages set out? Like, very interested in that.
Yeah, high fat and carbohydrate plant-based diet. So kind of starting off the morning with oats. Again, there's going to be a lot of coconut milk involved. That really is a place to get a lot of this highly caloric fats from. So I'll start off the morning again, with oatmeal, kind of hit the road, oatmeal and coffee, follow up within an hour or so with a highly, highly caloric smoothie. That smoothie, again, having a lot of coconut milk. We're going to be utilizing Soylent, which is a meal replacer.
Sure.
It's just because I need to consume, kind of backing up a little bit, I need to consume starting off about 6,000 calories a day. And as this ramps up, we'll get to about 10,000 calories once my body really gets going and my metabolism is in full effect. So, we got those two meals, and then I stop in the middle of the day, have a large baguette sandwich with tofu, hummus, some vegetables, massive sandwich. And then throughout the day, we're peppering this in with more like Scratch being like a good
electrolytes.
Electrolytes, yeah.
Scratch Labs, right?
Yes.
Like
exactly,
Alan, yeah. Oh, that
Yeah.
stuff's amazing.
It really is, yeah. So we're using that and their chews, which will just, keep me from bonking, keeping my sugar levels up. Again, that baguette for lunch, and then continuing that through the evening, and then at night, we're working through right now. There's going to be some meals that'll be just a lot of pasta with olive oil, some vegetables, and then some of the camper freeze-dried foods. I'm still working with some brands on getting some of those together, and we'll be cooking those in with coconut milk. And then, just kicking back in the evening, having some Nadamu dairy-free ice cream, one of my sponsors.
Nice.
And just repeating. And then as this progresses, we'll just kind of up the quantity of the smoothies. There's going to be a couple of those through the day, and that's where we'll start filling in those extra calories.
Why do you have to add calories as your trip goes on? What changes in your body? Just on a metabolic level, I think it just starts to burn more. I think once I deplete all of my small fat reserves I have right now, there's just nothing left to burn that's already there. Mm-hmm. So we have to provide it every day. Yeah. And then reparation too. You have to repair a lot of stuff. So that
doubt.
Totally makes sense.
When are you sleeping?
Yeah. I hope.
How much?
How long is it going to take you to do the 40 to 47? How many miles a day is it that you're doing?
So yeah, it will average, around 43 is the number, but that will vary. With every section, we have kind of, due to whether it be logistics for the van and camper setup for that to have somewhere safe to park, or it be just elevation change. There's some days that will be down around a marathon distance, 26 miles. Up to about 58 miles. It's going to be some of my longer days. So in there, the plan is I'm going to wake up around 5 a.m., feet on the ground by 6, run the first 20 miles, and then take a little bit of a break to have some time to eat, maybe a 30-minute nap, and then finish up in the evening, back in bed by 8 p.m. at the latest, is the hope. The good thing about this and what makes it manageable for me is that break in the middle of the day. Like my running, even a year ago when I decided to do this, like running 20 miles felt very manageable. So when I started thinking about this goal, it was like, okay, well, if I can do that in the morning, take a break in the afternoon and do it again in the evening, it became very feasible for me.
It's smart to do it that way.
I know that you love food, and as you go across the country, there might be wonderful places to eat. Will you Happy Cow, for those listeners who don't know Happy Cow? Happy Cow is an app where you can find, get it. It's an app where you can find vegan or vegetarian restaurants, supermarkets, etc. You going to be eating anywhere, and when are you interfacing with folks?
So as far as eating, there's nothing in the plan, but I'm sure it will happen. Again, I do love food. I love exploring new restaurants, and that's been a huge part of this change over to a plant-based diet too, is it just opened up a new world and provided some focus to the restaurants for which I like to dine at, ones that are, at least vegan friendly, if not just completely vegan restaurants. So there's nothing in the plans, but I'm sure we're going to be looking and finding places just to, change things up and shake it up as we go along, for sure.
I want to see if you could help bust a myth for me. You've mentioned a couple of times that, you were a foodie, you are a foodie, but you were really into hot cuisine before you went plant-based. So I was the opposite. I was not, and I turned into a foodie as a plant-based eater because it just became so fun and so interesting to me. But I oftentimes, as we all do that are vegan or plant-based, people will say, oh, I could never do that because I'm such a foodie. What do you say to them?
Well, one, that thing of I like to eat. Well, the great thing about being vegan is you get to eat so much more.
Nice point.
Just the quantities of food I can eat, it's so much fun. And it's really interesting to take this thing of food. And I just think it's really sad we live in a society where so many times when we eat, it's a negative thing. It's something that's damaging our bodies. And changing to this plant-based diet, it's the exact opposite. Every time I eat, I look at my food, and I know this is going to nourish me, and this is going to make me better. It's going to make me a better person for choosing these foods that are ethically sourced and don't, nothing suffering from it. And then on top of it, it's nutrient rich, and that part of it is huge. I'm a really big fan of that. And now there are just so many options. There's so many establishments and brands of food that are coming out that are of such high quality. And the more and more the years go by, I'm finding that even my personal chef friends, people come into their restaurants and they say they're vegan, and it's no longer not a problem. It's it provides an opportunity for them to really prove what they're capable of. And I think that that's something we're going to see more and more of. And the more and more people that will decide to make this choice to a plant-based diet, the more that restaurants and, grocery store foods are going to come in line with that. And so, I find it to be quite empowering and quite interesting to be a part of.
It's not broccoli dipped in lemon juice anymore.
No, it's not at all.
So much more than that.
Well, I went to the website for Not a Moo because, Robbie is sponsored by Not a Moo, and there were 12 flavors, and just looking at it, and I'm eating whole food, so I can't eat that stuff. But oh my God, my mouth started to water just looking at the names of the variety.
Right?
Oh my gosh! So
it's so creamy.
So
too.
Tell me. Oh, I haven't had it.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane.
It's a really great product.
Oh, so what's your favorite? What's your favorite flavor?
People are going to find this boring, but I really do love the vanilla.
Oh,
For heaven's sakes.
Also, but I'll say too, the maple pecan, it reminds me of butter pecan. When I was a kid, it was like the one that was always in my grandparents' freezer, the ice cream. And that one takes me back. And I really do like that one a lot. They've come up with a couple new flavors in the last month that all look really interesting. But what I love about Nadamu, and I think it's something that is really going to help this transition to a plant-based food is definitely that we've got to take these things that that people love. They're iconic. There's nothing more iconic than ice cream, and getting to see a product come that is as good, if not better, than it's like a milk-based alternative. Those things, if these things happen more and more, it just that's the proof in the pudding. That's where we're going to see a big switch. So I just encourage other brands and other people to start thinking about that and coming up with great products such as Nadamu, so that there's just no more excuses. I think we're really close to that. There's so many good products out there.
Yeah, there are, but you are a lot like my mother, who when we were kids and we would go to Baskin Robbins, she would choose vanilla, and we would, as kids, would look at them. There's 31 flavors, and she would choose. We would be appalled, and she would just say, "Well, I like it." And,
So you like what you like.
Yeah, you like what you like. But yeah, so one of the interesting things that I think you can be really inspirational, certainly as an athlete, to debunk the myth. And I love what you said when you first came on about the fact that you just felt so much better right away when you started eliminating animal foods from your diet. Your run will certainly be a huge inspiration for a lot of people, and it'll be myth busting in terms of how it doesn't plant-based makes you strong, not weak. But how are you going to talk to the people you meet along the way? I imagine that you've got a van that's emblazoned with, vegan runner or something. And so if people come up to you, what will you be saying to them that will help them? And because they'll look at you and they'll think, well, here's a guy who's running across the country. I have trouble getting to the gym. So where are you going to find that common ground? How are you going to do that to inspire them to turn vegan, or to at least eliminate animal foods slowly from their diet?
Yeah, I think the key for me is that slowly in your diet. I think it's pretty daunting, to just someone to go from one lifestyle to another. I think it's all in making small choices. It's living in the now. And if let's say you're eating traditionally 3 meals a day, and if all 3 of those meals are heavy on animal-based products, for every part of that meal, and then in every meal that you choose to not include those animal-based products, that's a success. So as much as I'm running across the country, I have to break this down into small little goals, and that being every step, every 5 miles, every half day, every week. And I think the same being true for individuals. And if it is just waking up in the morning and instead of having bacon and eggs, having a cup of oatmeal, I just think there's just so many small successes that we should congratulate ourselves on and quit beating ourselves up about the things that we don't do. And I think if you start with that, then, and you live that conscious life and with purpose, then over time, you're going to look back and be like, wow, look at how many places I've improved my well-being by making small choices.
And ladies and gentlemen, for those that don't like oatmeal, like me, you can also wake up and have tofu scramble with nutritional yeast and cumin and tempeh bacon. I just want to throw that out there, because I always heard, you can just have oatmeal. I'm like, I hate oatmeal. It's not going to work. I can't be vegan. You can.
Well, that's true.
There is something profound about a tofu scramble. It is one of my favorite things. I think eggs were a hard thing, and especially it was that morning scramble. But now that I have really dove into the art of the tofu scramble, I can't tell you how much I love it. It's more rewarding than eggs.
I think also smoothies can help people. And I know you're going to be drinking some smoothies. So you could give people a recommendation of what you put in, and tell us. Sometimes if you put too much kale or spirulina in, people get a little turned off. So I'm always for peanut butter and chocolate and banana to get them started. What are you going to be putting in your smoothies? Because you mentioned that you're going to have smoothies too to keep you going.
Well, I mean, mine, I don't know that mine that I will be having on while running is going to be really applicable to people because it is so highly calorically dense. But, at home, as I've been ramping up my mileage and just on the daily, my partner Shelly and I, our morning smoothies, there's a lot of banana, carrots, almond milk, and then there is some kale for sure. And then for me, kind of what cuts all of that kind of herbaceous grassiness to it is frozen fruit. Frozen fruit goes a long way. It brightens it up and has a touch of sweetness to it. That's kind of our combo, and tons of peanut butter. I think that peanut butter is a real good kick to the. Don't forget the peanut butter.
And I actually put cauliflower in mine this morning.
Of course you do.
Yeah, I did. It was raw. Well, cauliflower is great because you can't taste the cauliflower, but it adds a thickness to it.
Oh, okay. Maybe try it then.
Cook it or not. So highly recommend that. But it does kind of freak people out, I guess.
And water too. Like I think it's important to remember that water because I think there is like this like. It's really great. I think we all forget about our hydration, especially in the morning, especially as coffee drinkers. So if you thin it out a little bit, it gets it easier through a nice big glass straw or something like that, and you get that morning hydration going. So that's hard. That's even something that's hard for me some mornings.
Oh yeah, well, hydration is going to be really important for you. You're starting in March, and you'll be going through April and May, so it could get hot. How many? Do you know? How are you going to figure out your water?
Constant, it's really going to be a lot of water, and a lot of electrolyte replacements with Scratch. So around every bend, I will be consuming water. I have like 4 different options for hydration, either belts, handhelds, or vests that I'll be wearing, depending on how far out it will be that I'm seeing my crew again. And that's really the name of the game in running. As I'm running these longer distances, when I start to feel little tweaks in my muscles and stuff, it usually relates back to my water consumption. And if I can drink some water, it seems to alleviate those little pains and stuff go away.
Yeah. Before we go, I'm going to definitely, I want to talk about where you're starting from because we're going to get everyone out. But as a cyclist, I am very preoccupied with aerodynamics. And so I'm a little worried about your beard. So for those of you who can't watch are not watching or listening, Robbie has a huge like mountain man beard. Let's just call it that. Is this kind of like a pre-run thing you're going to like shave that morning? Is it a good luck thing? Are we going all the way across to New York with the beard because it'll grow and then the aerodynamics are going to get worse? And then I don't know how I feel about this.
Well, I'd like to say that it was all in just like making sure that I embodied Forrest Gump as much as possible. Okay. But I've had a different length beard, from here even longer up to much shorter, pretty much, my whole adult life. So I'll probably trim it up and let it start its thing again as we approach closer to the beginning. Of
okay, fair enough. You look good. You do. It's very handsome.
You mentioned injuries. As someone who can no longer run because of knee injuries myself, I am wondering what kind of injuries do you have to deal with, or are you not contending with any these days?
Yeah, I feel pretty blessed. I have really good biomechanics. My body is kind of it's set up for this. As a kid and through high school, friends used to kind of make fun of me when I'd run because I ran on my toes, and that's really an advantage. I'm lucky. My gait is in a way that I land right and I don't really sustain a lot of injuries. When I start to feel tweaks and stuff, I really find that trigger point therapy, rolling it out, is really key. And I think it's something that when those nagging pains start coming in, you really have to pay attention to. And even if that means not running for a day or two, but taking that time that you would run and focusing on working on that specific spot, that's kind of what's kept me injury free. And that's kind of how it's working out for me.
I read that you use CBD oil. Is that true? Mm-hmm. Does that help you with aches and pains and things like that?
It does. I've been exploring that a little bit over the last 8 months or so. There's, a couple of different applications for it or ways to get it. I'm finding for me that the topical creams work best. Just rubbing down problematic areas, or really not even problematic, but just soreness. Mm-hmm. And I think I will definitely be using that, massaging that into my skin as I go. I use a brand called Hemp Daddies. They source all of their hemp from Colorado. It's a company here out of Texas. And it's working really, really well for me.
Oh, good.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, we might have to try that because we just need it because we're old. All right, so this is going to take off. He is going to take off, you guys, on March 15th. Huntington Beach, right at the end of the Huntington Beach Pier. So pretty easy. You don't need an address or anything. This is pretty easy to find. You're going to start really running about 7:30, but everyone should get there around 7. I'm going. The whole Switch4Good crew's going. Alexandra's going. We're all going to be there. A lot of different running clubs from Orange County, San Diego, LA are coming out. It's going to be a huge party, but he needs us. So we're going to be there. So everyone listening, if you're not in the LA area, get your LA area peeps to come out on March 15th, 7 a.m., Huntington Beach Pier to cheer Robbie off. And then we will be doing lots of Robbie updates, as will Nadamu, of course. We'll probably do a couple on the podcast, definitely on Switch4Good Instagram. We'll be just all the way through so that we can then get all you New Yorkers to cheer him home at the other side and a few stops along the way. So stay tuned to Switch4Good's Instagram to see how Robbie's doing. You're gonna be amazing. This is incredible.
Robbie, do you have a social media platform that you're going to be reporting on your progress and stuff that people can follow you after they've looked at the Switch4Good Instagram?
Totally, yeah. My Instagram account is my name. It's at Robbie Balenger, ROBBIE BALENGER. And then also with my one of my sponsors, Nadamu, we have created a website. It's plantpoweredmission.com. And from there, I'll be blogging regularly. We have a couple up already, and I'll continue that along with my crew chief and nutritionist, Jackie. She'll be putting a lot up on there as well. And we'll provide a interactive map. I'll have a GPS spot tracker on me the whole way. So every day we will update that, and everyone can kind of follow along through there as well.
That's going to be cool to be hearing from Jackie along the way.
Yeah.
What is going in. Yeah. Okay. I feel like nervous already, so let's hang up.
Thank you so much.
We're so
Robbie.
excited for you.
Thank
excited.
Y'all so much.
You're going to do great, and it sounds like you're really prepared, and that you've got your food dialed in, and that you've got all the tools you need and the support you need, and we're going to give you more of it.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate all your support. Thank you.
Thanks for being on, and you promise you'll come back when it's over and tell us about it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right. We'll see you March 15th.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye, Robbie.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the Switch4Good, please visit us at switch4good.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to Switch4Good. This is the future.